Hi everyone, welcome to my video on how to make bags for my Gold Award project. The supplies are scrap cardstock or paper, tape, heavy-duty fabric, straight pins, scissors, chalk, tape measure, sewing machine, thread, iron, belting material, and large wooden beads. First, we're going to use the tape and cardstock to tape a rectangle that's 25 inches by 38 inches. This will serve as a pattern to cut your fabric to size. For this project, you're going to want to use a really sturdy fabric such as duck cloth. Double up the fabric and pin it together where the sides are opened. Place the pattern on top and use a pen to trace the edges. Pin along the inside of the lines you just drew and use fabric scissors to cut along the lines. You will have two pieces of 25 by 38 inch fabric. You can unpin them now. Next, we're going to use chalk or a white pencil and a ruler to trace a rectangle on the side of the fabric that's a 1/2 inch by 2 inches. Then we're going to cut on the 1/2 inch line only. This will create a flap. Pin and sew down this flap. Now go to the other side of the piece of fabric and repeat the same exact thing. Start heating up your iron for the next steps. Now that you've sewed the flaps down, go to the very top of the piece of fabric and use a ruler to measure a 1/2 inch and fold it down. Take straight pins and use them to pin down the whole top of the flap. Use an iron to crease the edge that you just pinned down. Now bring it to the sewing machine and sew along the pins that you just pinned. It should look like this when you're done. At the place indicated in the video, fold down the top so that it creates a flap and pin it down. What we sewed earlier was so it wouldn't unravel, but this flap we're creating now is the opening where the drawstring will go through. Use your iron and iron over what you just folded. Sew this flap down on top of the previous line of thread that's already there from sewing the first flap. You can sew this twice if you want maximum strength. Everything we just did was only on one of the pieces of fabric we cut earlier. Now, take the second piece of fabric and repeat all of those steps. You should have two identical pieces of fabric with top flaps. Remember the excess fabric from earlier? We're going to use this fabric to create a pocket for the side of the bag. Measure and cut a piece of fabric that's 12 by 10 inches long. From the 12-inch side, measure down a flap of fabric that's 1/4 inch long and iron it. Pin it down with straight pins. Then go to the other sides of the flap and also fold them down 1/4 inch, but we're only going to do this for 3 sides. Leave one of them open. Now sew down the fold at the very top. Place this rectangle onto the bigger piece of fabric and measure 9.5 inches from the top and 7 inches from the side. To mark this place, trace a line underneath the rectangle onto the bigger piece of fabric. Gently fold over the rectangle and place it so that it's right next to the bottom line that you drew. Pin this down. As you can see, there's that one side of the rectangle that has no folded seam. We are going to sew on the inside of the rectangle along this seam. This will adhere the rectangle to the bigger piece of fabric. After sewing, you can remove the pins and fold over the flap. As you can see, this is creating a pocket. You can use pins to pin it down in its new place. Then you can go to the sewing machine and sew down one of the 10-inch sides. Now go to the other 10-inch side and sew that one down too. And you're done with your pocket. Do not sew down the top flap because this is the opening to the pocket. Now put aside what we've been working on and use some excess fabric to make the straps. The long strip of fabric we're using will be 6 inches by 30 inches. Fold it in half and now you've created a strap that's doubled up and is 3 inches by 30 inches. Unfold the fabric for a second. On the long side of one side of the fabric, we're going to fold down a fold that is about a 1/2 inch long and pin it down the whole length of the fabric. Switch to the other long side of the fabric and fold down another flap that's a 1/2 inch long and goes down the whole long side of this strap. Now fold the fabric back in half again so that the two seams are touching each other like so. Go to the iron and iron this all down. Then go to the sewing machine and sew down the side that we've folded together that have the 1/2 inch seams. You can sew along the other side of the strap even though it doesn't need to be sewn together. This gives it reinforcement. I'm going to show you how to sew on the straps with a graphic. Start by placing piece number 1 on the table, pocket side up. And then you're going to put this strap on diagonally, but leave at least 6 inches at the bottom of that piece of fabric. Next, you're going to put piece number 2 on top of the strap so that the strap is sandwiched in between the 2 pieces of fabric. Piece number 2 should be placed good side down, and by good side down, I mean the side that has the drawstring flap should be faced downward. So on the real pieces of fabric, this is what it would look like. Now you can pin everything together along the sides to hold things in place. In case you're a little confused on how this works, this is what the strap would look like once you're finished sewing. Now you can sew together all the sides except for the opening at the top. When sewing over the side where the strap peeks out, I would sew over it a second time to reinforce the stitch and make sure that it doesn't tear later. Here's a graphic to show dotted lines where you should be sewing. After you sew, you can cut off the excess straps that are peeking out of the sides. Now onto the bottom of the bag. At the bottom of our bag, we're going to sew a box corner. It looks like this and it allows the bag to stand up and hold things at the bottom. Start by drawing a line along the bottom of the bag that's 5 inches from the edge. Now we're going to stick our hands inside of the bag, go to where the side seams are, and pull outward to create triangles at the corner. You may need to replay this part of the video because it can be confusing at first. Now we are going to repeat what we just did on the other corner of the bag. Your bag should look something like this. The original bottom seam of the bag should be in the middle and sticking up. Next, you're going to flatten this onto the table, and where there's dotted lines shown on the screen, draw a chalk line to make a triangle. Use a ruler to make sure it's straight and even with the other side, and then use pins to pin it down. Next, iron it. Sew along the line you just drew, and I would sew it twice if you want to make sure it's extra strong. Repeat this by sewing along the line you drew on the other side of the bag. Create folds along the white lines you drew earlier. Iron these down on both sides. Then cut off the triangles at the end by cutting along the right side of the line you sewed. Repeat this on the other side too. After this, you're going to take your bag and turn it inside out so that the good side is facing out. Use something pointed such as your finger or a pen to poke out the corners of the box you just created so that it creates the shape we're looking for. The bottom should have a box-like shape as shown. I filled this bag with a few things so you could see how it looked. And that's the main part of your bag complete. Now we're going to move on to the drawstring. The drawstring for my bags is made out of sturdy 1-inch belting/strapping. Start by cutting a piece that's 61 inches long. Now fold the belting in half a 1/2 inch and pin it down so that it looks like this. Sew it together down the middle. Be sure to sew a horizontal strip at the end to prevent fraying. Pin a large safety pin to the end of the strap we just sewed. This will be used to feed the string through the drawstring tube. After the strap is fed completely through the tube, pull and adjust them to make sure the 2 straps sticking out are at even lengths. You can use large wooden beads with 1/2 inch openings to work as cord stops to keep the bag closed and opened. Feed the 2 ends of the strapping into the hole of the wooden bead. Try twisting the 2 straps into the beads because otherwise it can be difficult to fit them through. To make sure the wooden bead doesn't slide off, go to the ends of the 2 straps and tie them into a knot. Make sure to tie this really tight. You can push the bead upward to help tighten it. And now you're finished. In this video, I put a blanket at the bottom of the bag so you could see how the box corners looked. If the bag is packed full, you can wear it on one shoulder. If there are less things in the bag, you can wear it cross-body. Here are some other bags I've made using these same instructions but different fabrics. And that's the end of the video. Keep in mind you can modify these instructions based on the materials available and your skill level. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.